The concealer stick was almost empty. I twisted the base, coaxing out the last dregs of beige paste, and dabbed it carefully over the bruise on my left cheekbone. 3 layers. That's what it took these days to hide the evidence of Marcus's temper. Foundation on top, powder to set it, then a careful assessment in the bathroom mirror of Romano's Italian restaurant to make sure nothing showed under the harsh fluorescent lights. 24 years old, and I'd become an expert at disappearing violence. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. My reflection stared back at me with green eyes that used to sparkle, now just tired. Shoulder-length auburn hair pulled into the mandatory sleek ponytail. The purple polo shirt with Romano's logo embroidered over my heart. Black slacks that hid the finger-shaped bruises on my thighs. I looked professional, composed, completely normal. Nobody would know that 3 hours ago, Marcus had shoved me against our apartment wall hard enough to crack the drywall because I'd suggested he look for a job instead of spending his unemployment checks at the bar. Sophia, Marco's voice cut through the bathroom door. Table 6 needs water, and the VIP section just got a walk-in. Move. I grabbed my order pad and pushed through the door back into the controlled chaos of Friday night dinner service. Romano's occupied a prime corner in Chicago's River North neighborhood, the kind of place where businessmen close deals over $20 glasses of wine and tourists spent rent money trying to feel sophisticated. I'd been working here for 2 years, ever since I'd dropped out of college when my scholarship funding fell through. The tips were good enough to keep Marcus and me afloat in our studio apartment, even if most of my paycheck disappeared into his pocket before I could protest. The restaurant hummed with conversation and clinking silverware. I wove between tables with practiced efficiency, refilling water glasses, taking orders, smiling until my face ached. My feet throbbed in the cheap non-slip shoes I couldn't afford to replace. The bruise on my ribs, 4 days old now, fading from purple to greenish yellow, pulled with every deep breath. Table 6 wanted more bread. Table 8 needed their check split 4 ways. Table 10's steak was overcooked and needed to be remade, which meant groveling to the kitchen staff who already hated me because Marcus had showed up drunk last month and caused a scene. I was clearing table 12 when Marco appeared at my elbow, his face flushed with the particular shade of stress that meant someone important had arrived. VIP section. He hissed. Table 1. 4 men. The one in the black suit is Dante Caruso. My hands froze mid-reach for a dirty plate. Everyone in Chicago knew that name, even if they pretended not to. Dante Caruso ran at the north side with an iron fist wrapped in expensive Italian leather. Restaurants, construction, waste management, all legitimate businesses on paper. Everyone knew what lay underneath. Why are you telling me this? I whispered back. Because he's in your section, and if you screw this up, we're all fired. Marco straightened my collar with rough hands. Smile. Be perfect. Don't stare. Don't ask questions. Just serve them like they're normal customers who happen to tip in $100 bills. The VIP section occupied the back corner of Romano's, separated from the main dining room by frosted glass panels and ambient lighting that cost more than I made in a month. I smoothed down my shirt, checked that my ponytail was neat, and pushed through the partition with my heart hammering against my ribs. 4 men sat at the round table. 3 of them wore dark suits and had the look of men who solved problems with their hands. But the 4th, the one sitting with his back to the wall, positioned so he could see every entrance and exit, made my breath catch. Dante Caruso was maybe 35, with black hair swept back from a face that belonged in Renaissance paintings, sharp cheekbones, a straight nose that had probably been broken at least once, and a jaw that could cut glass. He wore a charcoal suit that fit like it had been sewn directly onto his body. The jacket opened to reveal a black shirt and no tie. A thin white scar cut through his left eyebrow, and when his eyes landed on me, I understood why people crossed the street to avoid him. They were dark brown, almost black, and they looked at me like I was a puzzle he'd already started solving. Good evening, gentlemen. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Can I start you with something to drink? Chianti, one of the other men said. The 2012, if you have it. Of course. I scribbled the note. And for you, sir? I looked at Dante without quite meeting his eyes. Whiskey. Neat. Macallan. 18 if Marco stocks it. His voice was deep, controlled, with the faintest trace of an accent that suggested Italian roots and American polish. If not, whatever his best is, we do have the Macallan. I wrote it down with hands that wanted to shake. And for the other gentleman? The orders came quickly: wine, scotch, another whiskey. I repeated them back with the efficiency born of 2 years doing this job, then escaped to the bar before my composure cracked. He ordered the Macallan, I told Tony, the bartender. Table 1. Tony whistled low. Big spender. That's $80 a glass. Just pour it. I leaned against the bar, trying to slow my pulse. Through the frosted glass, I could see Dante's silhouette, the way he gestured while talking to his associates, controlled and economical with his movements. When I returned with the drinks, careful not to spill a single drop, Dante was listening to one of his men speak in rapid Italian. I distributed the glasses, set down, cocktail napkins, and was turning to leave when his voice stopped me. What's your name? I turned back. Sophia, sir. How long have you worked here, Sophia? 2 years. I kept my expression neutral, professional. Is there anything else I can get you while you look at the menus? Not yet. His eyes hadn't left my face, studying with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Not sexual. Exactly. More like he was reading a language written in my posture and the set of my shoulders. We'll need a few minutes. I nodded and retreated, feeling his gaze track me across the restaurant like a physical weight. The next hour passed in a blur of controlled chaos. Dante's table ordered appetizers, then entrees, then more wine. I served them with mechanical efficiency, hyper-aware of his attention every time I approached. He noticed things the way I favored my left side, the careful movements that suggested pain I was trying to hide, the too bright smile that didn't reach my eyes. I was clearing their appetizer plates when it happened. My sleeve caught on the edge of a wine glass. I grabbed for it, overcorrected, and the whole tray tilted dangerously. 6 empty plates sliding toward disaster, my body already bracing for the crash, for Marco's fury, for the humiliation of failure in front of Chicago's most dangerous man. Dante's hand shot out faster than thought, catching my elbow and steadying me before catastrophe struck. His grip was firm but not painful, nothing like Marcus's hands that always squeezed too hard, left marks that lasted days. Careful, he said quietly, but in steadying me, he'd pushed my sleeve up past my wrist. The bruises were unmistakable, 4 distinct fingerprints, purple fading to yellow, circling my arm like a brand. Marcus's signature from 2 nights ago when I'd come home 20 minutes late from my shift and he'd demanded to know who I was sleeping with. The temperature in the VIP section dropped 10 degrees. Dante's eyes moved from my wrist to my face, and something shifted in his expression. The polite restaurant patron disappeared, replaced by something cold and predatory that made my stomach clench with instinctive fear. Who did that to you? His voice was soft, terrifyingly soft. No one. I pulled my arm back, tugging the sleeve down with my free hand while trying to balance the tray. I'm fine. It's nothing. That's not nothing. His 3 associates had stopped talking, all attention suddenly focused on our interaction. The air felt heavy, dangerous, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. I bruise easily, I said, the lie automatic after months of practice. I'm just clumsy. Hit it on a door. Dante's jaw tightened incrementally. He knew I was lying. I knew he knew. But something in his face told me he wouldn't push, wouldn't force me to admit what we both understood in front of his men and my coworkers. Doors can be dangerous, he said, each word carefully weighted. You should be more careful. Around them. The way he said doors made it clear we were no longer talking about furniture. I finished clearing their table with shaking hands, hyper-aware of his gaze tracking my every movement for the rest of the meal. He noticed when I adjusted my sleeve 3 more times in as many minutes. Noticed when I flinched at Marco's raised voice from across the restaurant. Noticed the careful way I moved, favoring the ribs Marcus had bruised when his open palm hadn't been satisfying enough. When I brought their check, I expected him to say something else, to push the issue. He didn't. Just signed the receipt with elegant script and stood, buttoning his jacket with practiced ease. His associates filed out first, and Dante paused beside the table. He'd left something behind. $500 bills sat folded under his water glass. Underneath, a business card with embossed lettering. Dante Caruso, Private Security Consulting. On the back, a phone number written in neat script. In case you need help with any more doors, he said, meeting my eyes one final time. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. Day or night, that number reaches me directly. Then he walked out, moving through Romano's with the kind of presence that made people step aside without conscious thought, leaving me standing there with trembling hands and a tip that represented 2 weeks of rent. Marco materialized at my elbow within seconds, eyes wide. "What did you do to earn that?" "Nothing," I said truthfully. "I didn't do anything." But as I pocketed the card and the money, I knew that wasn't entirely accurate. Dante Caruso had seen something in those bruises, something that triggered a response I didn't fully understand. Recognition, maybe, or rage on behalf of someone he didn't even know. The rest of my shift passed in a fog. I served tables, smiled at customers, avoided Marco's suspicious glances. But my mind kept returning to that moment when Dante's hand had caught my arm the careful way he'd held me, like I was something fragile that might break with too much pressure. Marcus had never touched me like that. Not even in the beginning when things were good, before the drinking got bad and his hands turned from caresses to weapons. By the time I clocked out at midnight, October rain had started falling, turning Chicago streets slick and reflecting neon signs in distorted colors. I pulled my thin jacket tighter. The good one was hanging in our apartment, and wearing it would have meant explaining to Marcus why I needed it. Enduring another interrogation about where I was going and who I'd be seeing. Easier to freeze. The business card sat in my wallet right behind my driver's license, where I'd see it every time I opened it. I should have thrown it away. Should have taken the tip as extraordinary luck and forgotten the whole encounter. Should have known better than to accept anything from a man like Dante Caruso, whose name Marco had spoken with a mixture of respect and fear. Instead, I traced my fingers over the embossed letters as I waited for the bus, memorizing the number on the back even though I told myself I'd never use it, just in case, because for the first time in 8 months, someone had noticed. Someone had seen past the smile and the makeup and the lies about doors, and that small recognition felt like oxygen after months of suffocating. The bus arrived, doors hissing open. I climbed aboard, found a seat near the back, and watched Chicago blur past rain-streaked windows. Tomorrow I had a double-shift breakfast through dinner, 14 hours on my feet. Tomorrow Marcus would probably apologize like he always did, swear it wouldn't happen again like he always did, make promises we both knew he wouldn't keep. But tonight, I had $500 and a phone number, and the memory of dark eyes that had looked at my bruises with something that felt dangerously close to fury. It wasn't much, but it was more than I'd had this morning. The apartment was dark when I finally made it home at 1 a.m., smelling like garlic and exhausted to my bones. I unlocked the 3 deadbolts Marcus had insisted on installing to keep us safe, he'd said, though I suspected it was more about keeping me contained and slipped inside as quietly as possible. Marcus sprawled on our second-hand couch, still wearing yesterday's clothes, an empty whiskey bottle on the coffee table beside him. The TV played some late-night show with the volume too loud, casting flickering blue light across his slack face. Relief washed through me. Passed out meant no questions about where I'd been, why I was late, who I'd talked to. No accusations, no interrogations, no hands that moved faster than his brain could process consequences. I tucked the $500 into the pocket of my winter coat hanging in the back of our closet, the one Marcus never touched because it was women's stuff. The business card. I went into the lining of my purse, slipped through a small tear in the fabric where it would be invisible unless someone knew to look. Hidden. Safe. Mine. In the bathroom, I finally let myself look at the damage properly. The bruise on my cheekbone had started showing through the makeup, purple shadow spreading like watercolor. My wrist bore perfect fingerprints. When I lifted my shirt, the bruises on my ribs had darkened overnight, spreading across my left side in shades of violet and sickly green. I'd been hiding this for 8 months. 8 months of makeup and long sleeves and lies about being clumsy. 8 months of walking on eggshells, calculating which words would set him off, which silences would be interpreted as disrespect. 8 months of disappearing piece by piece until I couldn't remember who I'd been before Marcus. "Who did that to you?" Dante's voice echoed in my head, soft and deadly. I turned on the shower, let it run hot, and sat on the bathroom floor fully clothed, while steam filled the space around me. Only then did I let myself cry quiet, controlled sobs that wouldn't wake Marcus, wouldn't invite questions I couldn't answer. The card in my purse felt like it was burning through the leather, calling to me with promises I didn't dare believe. Day or night, that number reaches me directly. What would I even say if I called? That my boyfriend hit me? That I was trapped in a studio apartment with a man whose love had curdled into possession? That I was terrified and exhausted and didn't know how to leave without making everything worse? Dante Caruso dealt in violence and power and darkness I couldn't begin to comprehend. Getting involved with him would be trading one danger for another, one cage for a different kind of trap, but his hand on my elbow had been gentle. His eyes, when he saw those bruises, had held something that looked like recognition, like he understood exactly what those marks meant and what they represented. Doors can be dangerous. I peeled off my work clothes, finally stepped into the shower, and let scalding water wash away the restaurant smell, the makeup, the carefully constructed mask I wore for the world. Tomorrow I'd rebuild it. Tomorrow I'd go back to Romano's and serve customers and pretend everything was fine. But tonight, standing under water hot enough to burn, I let myself imagine something different. A life where I didn't measure every word before speaking, where I could come home late without fear, where someone's hands on my body meant comfort instead of control. A life where someone like Dante Caruso would look at my bruises with cold fury and decide that whoever put them there had made a fatal mistake. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like the first spark of hope I'd felt in months. I turned off the water, dried off with the thin towel Marcus hadn't bothered to wash in weeks, and crawled into bed beside him. He didn't stir, too deep in his alcohol-induced coma, to register my presence. Sleep came eventually, but with it came dreams. Marcus's hands, Dante's dark eyes, the weight of a business card that promised help I didn't know how to ask for, and somewhere in the darkness, the understanding that something had shifted tonight. That being seen, truly seen for the first time in 8 months, had cracked something open inside me that I wouldn't be able to close again. Saturday morning arrived with pale sunlight filtering through our apartment's single grimy window, and Marcus's hand shaking my shoulder with unnecessary force. "Wake up! We need to talk." My eyes snapped open, heart already racing with the familiar adrenaline spike that came from his tone. He loomed over the bed, still wearing yesterday's clothes, his jaw tight with the particular tension that preceded explosions. "What's wrong?" I kept my voice neutral, careful. "You came home at 1 a.m. on a Friday night when your shift ends at midnight." He crossed his arms. "Want to explain where you were for that extra hour?" "The restaurant was busy. We had to do extra cleanup." The lie came automatically, practiced. Marco made everyone stay. "Marco." Marcus's laugh was ugly. "Right, Marco. Not some customer you were flirting with for extra tips?" My stomach dropped. He couldn't know about Dante, about the $500 currently hidden in my coat pocket. There was no way he could know. I wasn't flirting with anyone. I was working. "Then why do you smell different?" He leaned closer, inhaling near my neck in a way that made my skin crawl. "You smell like expensive cologne. Men's cologne. Marcus, I serve tables. I'm around customers all night. Sometimes." His hand shot out, grabbed my chin, forced my head back against the pillow. Not hitting yet, just controlling, just reminding me that he could. "Don't lie to me, Sophia. I'm not stupid. I'm not lying." My voice came out steady despite the fear coursing through my veins. "I went to work. I served customers. I came home. That's all." We stared at each other for a long moment, his fingers digging into my jaw hard enough to leave new bruises on top of old ones. Then he released me with a disgusted sound and stalked to the kitchen area of our studio apartment. "You're working another double today?" He called back, already pulling a beer from the refrigerator. 10 a.m., and he was drinking. The day was off to a great start. "Yes, breakfast through dinner shift." "Course you are. Anything to avoid being home with me." He took a long pull from the bottle. "Bring back your tips tonight. All of them. I need to cover the electric bill." The electric bill that was only $60, while my tips usually totaled close to $200 on weekends. But I nodded, already calculating how much I could skim off and hide with the $500 in my coat before handing over the rest. "I will." "And Sophia?" He turned back, beer bottle dangling from his fingers. "If I find out you've been lying to me, if I find out you've been seeing someone else, it won't just be a slap next time. We clear?" "We're clear." I waited until he returned to the couch and his beer before getting up, moving carefully to the bathroom where I could assess the new damage. His fingers had left red marks on my jaw that would be purple by evening. I'd need extra concealer, maybe a different technique to hide the swelling. The woman in the mirror stared back at me with empty eyes. 24 years old, and I'd become an expert at cataloging injuries, at knowing which bruises could be hidden and which ones required calling in sick. I thought about the business card hidden in my purse, about Dante's dark eyes and that soft, deadly voice asking who had hurt me. Day or night, that number reaches me directly. No, getting involved with someone like Dante Caruso would only make things worse. Marcus was mean when he drank, but at least I knew his patterns, could predict his moods. A mafia boss was unpredictable. Danger, a different kind of trap. I'd handle this myself. Save money until I had enough for a deposit on a new apartment. Wait until Marcus passed out. Pack a bag. Disappear in the night. That was the plan. That had always been the plan. I just needed to survive long enough to execute it. Romano's was already packed when I arrived for the breakfast shift at 9:30. Tourists and families filled the tables, demanding endless coffee refills and modifications to menu items that made the kitchen staff curse in Italian. Marco took one look at my face and sighed. "You're covering the bruise on your jaw poorly. Fix it before you go on the floor." I ducked into the bathroom, added another layer of makeup, and emerged looking slightly more human. The breakfast rush blurred into the lunch rush, which bled into the dinner rush. My feet screamed in protest. The bruises on my ribs pulled with every deep breath, but I smiled and served and collected tips that would mostly go into Marcus's pocket. Around 6 p.m., as the dinner crowd started arriving, Marco appeared at my station with that same stressed expression from last night. "Table 1 again?" he said quietly. "Same party." Dante Caruso just sat down. My hands froze in the middle of rolling silverware. "He's back?" "He specifically requested you as his server." Marco's eyes narrowed. "What happened last night, Sophia?" "Nothing. I served him dinner. He tipped well. That's all. Men like Dante Caruso don't come back 2 nights in a row for the pasta." Marco straightened my collar, checked that my ponytail was neat. "Whatever's happening, be careful. Men like him are dangerous in ways you can't imagine." I pushed through the frosted glass partition into the VIP section, with my heart hammering against my damaged ribs. Dante sat in the same position as last night, back to the wall, eyes on every entrance. Tonight he wore a navy suit with a white shirt open at the collar, and he was alone. No associates, no bodyguards visible, just him and a table set for one. His eyes landed on me immediately, and I watched his expression shift as he took in my appearance. The new bruises on my jaw that makeup couldn't quite hide. The careful way I moved, the exhaustion I couldn't mask after 9 hours on my feet. Something dark crossed his features, something that made the air feel heavy and dangerous. "Good evening, Mr. Caruso." I kept my voice professional, neutral. "Can I start you with something to drink?" "Sit down, Sophia." The command was soft but absolute, the voice of someone who expected obedience and received it. "I can't. I'm working." "Marco won't mind. I've already spoken to him." Dante gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit, please." The please made it worse somehow, made it feel less like an order and more like a request I couldn't refuse without consequences. I glanced back through the frosted glass. Marco gave me a tiny nod, permission granted by powers. Beyond my understanding, I sat, ramrod straight, hands folded in my lap to hide their trembling. "Did you eat today?" Dante asked. "I had coffee this morning." "That's not food." He signaled to a passing server I didn't recognize, spoke in rapid Italian. The server nodded and disappeared toward the kitchen. "You're working a double shift. 14 hours. When was the last time you had an actual meal?" "Yesterday, after my shift." Another lie. Marcus had eaten the leftover pasta I'd brought home, leaving me with crackers and the heel of a bread loaf. Dante studied me with that same intense focus from last night, like he was reading a language written in my posture and the set of my shoulders. "The bruises on your jaw are new. They weren't there yesterday." My hand moved instinctively to cover the marks, then stopped. No point in hiding what he'd already seen. "I told you I'm clumsy." I walked into, "Don't." The single word cracked like a whip. "Don't lie to me again, Sophia. Those are finger marks. I know what they look like because I've seen them before, and I know exactly what kind of person leaves them." The server returned with 2 plates of food pasta, with marinara, fresh bread, a side salad. The smell made my stomach clench with hunger I'd been ignoring all day. "Eat," Dante said, pushing 1 plate toward me. "Then we'll talk. I should be serving you, not Sophia." My name in his voice sounded different, weighted with something I couldn't name. "Eat, please." I picked up the fork because refusing seemed more dangerous than complying. The first bite of pasta was so good I nearly cried. Actual food, hot and fresh and seasoned perfectly. I forced myself to eat slowly, to maintain some dignity despite the desperate hunger clawing at my insides. Dante ate as well, but his attention never left me, watching, cataloging, processing information I didn't know I was giving him. "His name is Marcus," I said finally, the words escaping before I could stop with them. Maybe it was the food warming my empty stomach, or the exhaustion, or the way Dante looked at me like I mattered. We've been together 2 years. It started 8 months ago. First it was just yelling, then pushing, then… I gestured vaguely at my jaw. This. Why haven't you left? The question everyone asked, like leaving, was simple as walking out a door. Like there weren't 1,000 invisible chains holding me in place. Where would I go? I dropped out of college. I have no degree, no savings. This job barely covers our rent. I set down my fork, appetite suddenly gone despite the food, and he says if I leave, he'll find me. That I belong to him, that no one else would want someone as broken as me anyway. You believe that? I don't know what I believe anymore. The honesty surprised me. I never talked about this, never admitted weakness, but something about Dante made truth feel less dangerous than lies. I just know I'm tired of hiding bruises, tired of calculating which words will set him off, tired of disappearing piece by piece until I don't recognize myself anymore. Dante was quiet for a long moment, his jaw tight with barely contained fury. When he finally spoke, his voice was controlled, but edged with something cold and deadly. Where do you live? Why? Because Marcus made a mistake when he put his hands on you last night and this morning, and I'm going to make sure he understands exactly what kind of mistake that was. Fear spiked through me, sharp and immediate. No, you can't. If you go there, if you confront him, he'll know I told someone. He'll what? Dante leaned forward slightly. Hurt you worse? Sophia, he's already hurting you. It's escalating. Men like Marcus don't stop. They just go further each time, testing boundaries until there's nothing left to test. You don't understand. He'll be angry. He won't be anything by the time I'm done with him. The certainty in Dante's voice made my blood run cold. Give me your address. I can't. I won't. This isn't your problem to solve. You became my problem the moment you walked into this restaurant last night wearing bruises that someone else put there. He pulled out his phone, began typing. I can find your address in 10 minutes through other means. Or you can tell me now and save me the effort. I stared at him, at this man I'd met 24 hours ago, who was offering violence on my behalf without hesitation, without asking for anything in return. It should have terrified me, should have sent me running back to Marco with some excuse about feeling sick. Instead, I felt something crack open in my chest, something that had been locked down so tightly I'd forgotten it existed. Hope. 1247 West Division Street, I whispered. Apartment 3B. But please, you can't just… I'm not going there. Dante made a call, spoke in rapid Italian to whoever answered. Names I didn't recognize, addresses, instructions delivered in that. A controlled tone that suggested this was business as usual. Someone else is handling it. Marcus won't know it came from you. As far as he'll be concerned, he picked a fight with the wrong person at a bar, and things went badly for him. What are you going to do to him? What needs to be done? He ended the call, returned his attention to me with that same intense focus. Sophia, listen to me carefully. Marcus will not be returning to that apartment. Tomorrow, I'm having movers collect your belongings and transport them to a safe location. You're not going back there tonight or ever again. The room tilted. I can't just leave. I have nowhere to go. I can't afford. You're not paying for anything. I have a property in Lincoln Park, fully furnished, secure. You'll stay there until we figure out something more permanent. He held up a hand when I started to protest. This is not negotiable. Men like Marcus escalate when they lose control. If you go back there after he realizes you're involved with me, he'll hurt you worse than he ever has before. Involved with you? I served you dinner twice. I'm not involved with… You are now. Simple, absolute. The moment I saw those bruises, the moment I decided to intervene, you became my responsibility. That's how this works in my world. I don't want to be anyone's responsibility. I don't want to be property. Something softened in his expression, barely perceptible, but there. You're not property, Sophia. You're under my protection. There's a difference. Protection means choice, means autonomy, means no one puts their hands on you without facing consequences. I wanted to argue, to protest that I could handle this myself, that I didn't need a mafia boss solving my problems with violence and intimidation. But the truth was I'd been drowning for 8 months, and he was offering me a lifeline even if it came with complications I couldn't begin to understand. What do you want in return? The question came out, quiet, resigned. Nothing comes free, especially not from men like you. Men like me. Dante's laugh held no humor. You think I'm doing this because I want something from you? Because I see you as another possession to collect? Everyone wants something. You're right. I do want something. He leaned back in his chair, dark eyes never leaving mine. I want to go to sleep tonight knowing that somewhere in this city, a woman who serves me dinner with bruises hidden under makeup is safe. That's what I want. Nothing more complicated than that. Why? Why do you care about some waitress you don't even know? His hand moved to his collar, pulled it open slightly to reveal a thin white scar across his collarbone. My father put this here when I was 16, beat my mother for 20 years before that. I watched her hide bruises the same way you do. Watched her make excuses about being clumsy, about walking into doors. His voice was flat, emotionless, but his eyes held old fury. She died when I was 22. Heart gave out from stress and fear and years of absorbing violence. I was old enough by then to stop it, had the power and resources, but she wouldn't leave him, wouldn't accept my help. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just let me do for you what I couldn't do for her. He stood, buttoned his jacket with precise movements. Finish your shift. At midnight, there will be a car waiting for you outside the staff entrance. Black SUV. The driver's name is Luca. He'll take you to the Lincoln Park property. Your belongings will arrive tomorrow morning. What about Marcus? What happens when he realizes I'm gone? Marcus's problems are his own. You don't need to worry about him anymore. The way he said it made clear that Marcus's problems would be permanent and final. I should have felt guilt, horror, some sort of moral revulsion at being complicit in whatever Dante was planning. Instead, I felt nothing but exhausted relief. Okay, I whispered. Okay, Dante. Placed $500 bills on the table, another week's rent. Another reprieve from financial disaster. But this time he also left something else. A key on a simple ring. Lincoln Park address is on the tag. Make yourself at home. Everything you need is already there. He paused at the partition, looked back one last time. Sophia, you're safe now. I need you to understand that. Whatever happens next, whatever you hear about Marcus, you're safe. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in the VIP section with cold pasta and a key that represented a future I couldn't yet imagine. The rest of my shift passed in a fog of disbelief and anticipation and low-grade terror. I served tables, smiled at customers, collected tips mechanically. But my mind kept circling back to Dante's words. Marcus will not be returning to that apartment. What did that mean? Where was Marcus now? What was being done to him while I refilled water glasses and took dessert? Orders? The rational part of my brain said I should care, should feel something other than relief. But 8 months of walking on eggshells had burned through my capacity for sympathy. Marcus had made choices. He'd chosen to drink, to hit, to control. Now he was facing consequences for those choices. That wasn't my fault. At 11:45, Marco pulled me aside near the kitchen. Dante Caruso's driver is waiting for you outside. You're leaving with him? Yes. Do you know what you're doing? Who you're getting involved with? I thought about Marcus's hands on my jaw this morning, about the bruises layering on top of bruises, about the way Dante had looked at me like I mattered, like my safety was worth disrupting his entire evening. No, I admitted, but it can't be worse than what I'm leaving behind. Marco was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Go out the back, less conspicuous. And Sophia, be careful. Men like Dante Caruso protect what's theirs, but there's always a price. Make sure you understand what you're agreeing to before it's too late to walk away. I changed out of my work shirt in the staff bathroom, pulled on my thin jacket, and slipped out the back entrance into October cold. A black SUV idled at the curb, engine running, windows tinted dark enough to hide whoever sat inside. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out, maybe 40, with dark hair graying at the temples and eyes that missed nothing. He wore a suit that marked him as more than just a driver's security, probably, or whatever Dante called the people who handled problems that needed solving. Sophia? His voice was surprisingly gentle. I'm Luca. Mr. Caruso sent me. I nodded, unable to form words around the lump in my throat. He opened the back door for me, waited until I was settled, then returned to the driver's seat. The interior smelled like leather and something expensive, the same cologne I'd noticed on Dante, the one Marcus had smelled on me this morning and interpreted as betrayal. The Lincoln Park property is about 20 minutes from here, Luca said, pulling smoothly into traffic. Mr. Caruso had it prepared this afternoon. Fresh linens, stocked kitchen, everything you should need for tonight and tomorrow. What about Marcus? The question escaped before I could stop it. What happened to him? Luca's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. Mr. Crawford is being handled as we speak. By tomorrow morning, he'll understand that you're under Mr. Caruso's protection and that attempting to contact you would be inadvisable. Is he? I couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't ask if Marcus was dead, if I'd somehow become accessory to murder. He's alive, Luca said, reading my unspoken question. Scared, hurt enough to remember this lesson, but alive. Mr. Caruso doesn't believe in wasting lives when a clear message will suffice. He paused. Though if Mr. Crawford is stupid enough to ignore that message, the next conversation will have a different outcome. We drove through Chicago's late-night streets in silence after that. Past familiar landmarks that looked foreign through tinted windows. Past the life I'd been living toward something I couldn't name yet. The Lincoln Park property turned out to be a townhouse on a quiet street lined with trees and expensive cars. 3 stories of brick and large windows. The kind of place I'd walked past 1,000 times while serving people who could afford such luxury. Luca parked in the attached garage, then walked me through the space. Ground floor kitchen and living area. All modern appliances and furniture that looked straight from a magazine. Second floor bedroom and bathroom, the bed already made with linens softer than anything I'd ever touched. Third floor office and second bedroom, both immaculate and clearly unused. Security system is already active, Luca explained, showing me the panel by the front door. Code is your birthday. Mr. Caruso had your personnel file from Romano's, so he knew the date. Change it to something else if you prefer, but memorize it. This system connects directly to our security team. Any threat, any problem, you press this panic button and we'll have people here in under 3 minutes. He handed me a phone, newer and more expensive than anything I'd ever owned. Mr. Caruso's number is already programmed. Mine too. You need anything, food, clothes, someone to talk to, you call, day or night. Understood? I nodded, overwhelmed by the efficiency of it all. 12 hours ago, I'd been sleeping next to Marcus in our cramped studio. Now I stood in a townhouse that probably cost more per month than I made in a year, holding a phone that connected directly to Chicago's most dangerous man. Your belongings arrive tomorrow morning around 9, Luca continued. Someone will pack everything from your apartment. If there's anything specific you need sooner, let me know, and I'll have it delivered tonight. This is too much, I whispered. I can't afford any of this. I can't repay. You're not expected to repay anything. Luca's voice was firm but kind. Mr. Caruso doesn't do this for repayment. He does it because it's right, because you needed help and he was in a position to provide it. That's all. But nothing is free. Everyone wants something. What Mr. Caruso wants is for you to be safe, to sleep tonight without fear, to wake up tomorrow and start building a life where you're not constantly calculating which words will trigger violence. Luca moved toward the door. That's all he wants. For you to have the choice about your own life that was taken from you. He left, and I stood alone in this beautiful stranger's townhouse with a key in my pocket, and bruises on my skin, and the distant sound of sirens wailing somewhere in the city. Marcus was out there somewhere, learning what happened to men who put their hands on someone under Dante Caruso's protection, and I was here, safe behind locked doors and security systems, given a chance I didn't know how to accept. I climbed the stairs to the bedroom, peeled off my clothes, and stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The bruises told a story, Marcus's fingerprints on my jaw, older marks on my wrists, the ugly spread of purple across my ribs where his fists had landed. Tomorrow I would figure out what came next. Tomorrow I would process the fact that my life had fundamentally changed in the span of 24 hours. But tonight, I crawled into sheets softer than clouds and cried. For the girl I'd been before Marcus, for the 8 months of violence I'd absorbed like it was love, for the terrifying relief of being saved by someone dangerous in different ways. And for the first time in so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like. I fell asleep without fear. Morning arrived with sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to close, and the disorienting sensation of waking somewhere safe. For 3 perfect seconds, I didn't remember where I was or why. Then reality crashed back. Marcus, Dante, the townhouse, the promise that my belongings would arrive at 9. I grabbed the phone Luca had given me. 8:47 a.m. My body ached as I stood, every bruise protesting movement. I found the bathroom stocked with unopened toiletries, expensive brands I recognized from commercials but had never been able to afford, shampoo that probably cost more than my hourly wage, body wash that smelled like lavender and something herbal. The shower had multiple heads and water pressure that felt like heaven against my sore muscles. I stayed under the spray longer than necessary, watching days of tension wash down the drain, along with Marco's cheap restaurant soap and Marcus's cigarette smoke that had permeated every inch of our studio. When I finally emerged, wrapped in a towel softer than sin, I heard voices downstairs. 9 o'clock exactly. Dante's people were nothing if not punctual. I dressed in yesterday's clothes, the only ones I had, and descended the stairs to find 3 men efficiently unloading boxes from a truck parked in the garage. Luca supervised, checking items off a list on his tablet. "Morning," he said when he spotted me. "Coffee's brewing in the kitchen. This should take about 30 minutes. Everything from your apartment is here." "Everything?" I moved to one of the boxes, opened it to find my meager collection of books. The framed photo of my parents who died in a car accident 6 years ago. The jewelry box my grandmother had left me. Personal items Marcus had never paid attention to because they held no value to him. Mr. Caruso's instructions were clear. Anything that belonged to you came here. Anything that belonged to Mr. Crawford stayed. Luca gestured to the growing pile of boxes. Clothes, books, documents, even the coffee mug you kept by the bathroom sink. The attention to detail made my throat tight. Someone had gone through my life with careful precision, separating my existence from Marcus's like untangling 2 threads that had been knotted together. What about Marcus? The question I'd been avoiding. Was he there when you packed this? No. Luca's expression remained neutral. Mr. Crawford spent last night in the hospital. Broken ribs, dislocated shoulder, various contusions. He'll recover, but he received a very clear message about what happens to men who hurt women under Mr. Caruso's protection. I should have felt guilty. Should have been horrified that Marcus was in a hospital bed because of me, because I'd let Dante intervene. Instead, I felt a savage sort of satisfaction that made me question what kind of person I was becoming. Did he ask about me? He was too busy screaming to ask coherent questions. Luca made another note on his tablet. Though our people made certain he understood that attempting to contact you, find you, or retaliate in any way would result in consequences significantly worse than broken ribs. The movers finished within the promised 30 minutes, stacking boxes neatly in the townhouse's 3rd-floor office. Luca handed me a manila folder before leaving. "Documentation," he explained. "New phone is registered to a company Mr. Caruso owns, so Marcus can't trace it. This townhouse lease is in your name, paid through the end of the year. Bank account information with enough to cover expenses for the next 6 months. And a new credit card, also paid by Mr. Caruso's company, for anything immediate you need." I stared at the papers, at the careful reconstruction of a life I hadn't known I'd lost until someone offered to give it back. Why is he doing this? The question came out barely above a whisper. I'm nobody. Just a waitress who served him dinner twice. You're someone who needed help. Luca's voice was gentle. That's enough for Mr. Caruso. It's always been enough. After he left, I spent hours unpacking, hanging my few clothes in a closet bigger than Marcus's, entire bedroom space, arranging books on built-in shelves, setting up the bathroom with toiletries that were mine, chosen by me, not dictated by someone else's preferences. Each item felt like reclaiming pieces of myself I'd surrendered over 8 months of trying to keep Marcus happy, trying to prevent explosions that came anyway. Around 2 p.m., the phone Luca had given me buzzed. Unknown number, but somehow I knew who it was before I answered. "How are you settling in?" Dante's voice, controlled and professional, like he was checking on a business acquisition rather than the waitress he'd rescued from an abusive boyfriend. "It's overwhelming. The townhouse is beautiful. The clothes, the food, everything. It's too much. It's exactly enough. Have you eaten today?" I glanced at the kitchen, at the stocked refrigerator I'd been too nervous to raid. "Not yet. There's a restaurant 2 blocks east. Marcello's. Tell them you're my guest. They'll take care of you." A pause. "Or if you prefer, I can have food delivered. Whatever makes you comfortable." I should go out, get used to the neighborhood. Though the thought of leaving this safe cocoon made my stomach clench with anxiety. "Luca will accompany you if you'd like, or you can go alone. The area is safe, but I understand if you need time before venturing out independently." The fact that he offered choice, that he didn't demand or dictate, made something in my chest loosen. Alone is fine. I need to remember how to do things without someone watching my every move. Understandable. Another pause. Longer this time. Sophia, I meant what I said last night. You're safe. Marcus won't find you here. Won't bother you again. But if you feel unsafe, if you need anything at all, you call me directly. Not Luca, not someone else. Me. Why do you care so much? The question I'd been circling since Friday night. You don't know me. Don't owe me anything. I know enough. I know you hide bruises under makeup and work 14-hour shifts to support someone who uses you as a punching bag. I know you stayed with him because you didn't think you had anywhere else to go. His voice dropped lower, more intimate. And I know what it looks like when someone has been systematically broken down until they can't remember who they were before the breaking started. Your mother. My mother. And I was too young, too powerless to stop it until I wasn't. By then it was too late. She'd absorbed 20 years of violence, and it killed her from the inside out. A beat of silence. I can't save her. But I can save you. So that's what I'm doing. After we ended the call, I sat on the plush couch in the living room and cried. Not sad tears or scared tears, but something more complicated. Relief and grief and gratitude all tangled together until I couldn't separate them. Eventually, I forced myself to shower again, to put on clean clothes from my unpacked boxes, to walk out the door into October. Sunshine that felt different than it had 2 days ago. The neighborhood was beautiful. Tree-lined streets with brownstones and families walking dogs and couples holding hands. Normal people living normal lives, completely unaware that Chicago's most dangerous man owned property here, used it to shelter women he'd decided to protect. Marcello's turned out to be a small Italian restaurant with checkered tablecloths and the smell of garlic and fresh bread. I walked in feeling like an imposter in my discount jeans and clearance rack sweater, but the hostess's face brightened when I gave Dante's name. Of course, Mr. Caruso called ahead. Please, sit wherever you like. I chose a corner booth where I could see the door, old habit from Marcus, who taught me to always watch for threats. A waiter appeared immediately with water and bread, followed by the owner himself, a round man with kind eyes and flour dusting his apron. Any friend of Dante's eats like family here, he said in accented English. I'll bring you the special. You'll love it, I promise. The food arrived in waves. Antipasto with meats and cheeses I couldn't name. Pasta with sauce that made Romano's seem pedestrian. Wine I sipped carefully, afraid of losing control even in this safe space. And through it all, I watched normal people having normal conversations, living lives that weren't measured in bruises and survival tactics. Could I have this? Could I be this? Someone who ate good food without calculating the cost, who walked through neighborhoods without fear, who made choices based on what she wanted rather than what would prevent violence. I was halfway through dessert tiramisu that tasted like clouds when my phone buzzed again. Not Dante this time. Unknown number but Chicago area code. My hand shook as I answered. Hello? Heavy breathing. Then a voice I'd hoped never to hear again. Sophia. Marcus. His words slurred and thick with pain. You think you can just disappear? You think some rich asshole can protect you from me? My appetite vanished. The restaurant suddenly felt too bright, too exposed. How did you get this number? I have my ways. And I'm coming for you. I'm coming to show you what happens when you embarrass me, when you make me look weak. Marcus, you need to leave me alone. I need to teach you a lesson about loyalty, about who you belong to. He coughed, the sound wet and painful. They broke my fucking ribs, Sophia. Dislocated my shoulder. Said I'd get worse if I came near you. But you're mine. You've always been mine. And I'm taking back what belongs to me. The call ended. I sat frozen, dessert forgotten, Marcus's threats echoing in my head. He knew I had a new phone, knew I'd left him, knew about Dante's protection and had decided to ignore it anyway. I pulled up Dante's number with trembling fingers. He answered on the first ring. What's wrong? Marcus just called. I don't know how he got this number, but he called. He said he's coming for me, that he's going to teach me a lesson about loyalty and... My voice broke. Dante. He sounded crazy. Like he doesn't care what happens to him as long as he hurts me first. Where are you right now? Marcello's. The restaurant you recommended. Stay there. Don't move. I'm 10 minutes away, and I'm sending Luca as backup. You're safe, Sophia. I promise you're safe. But I didn't feel safe. I felt like prey being hunted, like Marcus's fingers were already closing around my throat. Like all of Dante's protection meant nothing against the specific violence of a man who'd decided I needed to be punished. The owner appeared, his kind face creased with concern. "Miss, are you all right? You look pale." "I'm fine. Just, could I have my check, please?" "Already taken care of." "Mr. Caruso's orders." He hesitated. "He also called 2 minutes ago. Said to lock the front door until he arrives. So that's what I'm doing." He moved to the entrance and turned the deadbolt with a decisive click. The handful of other diners looked up curiously, but no one protested. In this neighborhood, in this restaurant, Dante's word was law. 7 minutes later, a black SUV screeched to a stop outside. Dante emerged wearing jeans and a dark shirt, dressed more casually than I'd seen him but somehow more dangerous because of it. Luca followed, along with 2 other men I didn't recognize. Dante entered, his eyes scanning the restaurant until they found me. He crossed the space in long strides, and suddenly he was there, crouching beside my booth, his hand gentle on my shoulder. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head, not trusting my voice. "Did he threaten you directly?" "He said he's coming for me, that I belong to him, that he's going to teach me a lesson." The words tumbled out in a rush. He sounded insane, Dante, like someone who's past caring about consequences. Dante's jaw tightened, that scar on his eyebrow standing out white against flushed skin. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Find Marcus Crawford. Hospital discharge records show he left AMA 3 hours ago. I want him located and contained within the hour." He listened to whoever responded. "No, don't kill him yet. I want to handle this personally." He ended the call and returned his attention to me, his dark eyes searching my face. "How did he get your new number?" "I don't know. The phone Luca gave me is supposed to be secure." "It is secure." Dante's voice went cold. "Which means someone gave it to him. Someone in my organization or someone at Romano's who had access to your contact information." Luca appeared at the booth. "Sir, we should move her. If Crawford has the number, he might have the address." "Agreed." Dante stood, offered me his hand. "Come with me. We're going somewhere more secure until this is resolved." I took his hand because the alternative was sitting in this restaurant paralyzed by fear. He pulled me to my feet with that same careful gentleness from Friday night. Like I was something fragile that required protection. Outside, he guided me to the SUV's back seat, then slid in beside me. Luca drove, and the 2 other men followed in a second vehicle. We moved through Chicago traffic with aggressive efficiency, changing directions multiple times in patterns I didn't understand until I realized they were checking for tails. "Where are we going?" I finally asked. "My home, the one place in this city where I can guarantee your absolute safety." Dante's hand found mine, his thumb tracing circles over my knuckles. Marcus made a mistake when he ignored my warning. Men who make that kind of mistake don't get second chances. You're going to kill him. Statement, not question. Only if he forces that outcome. I'd prefer to make him understand that leaving Chicago entirely is in his best interest. Dante's voice was calm, measured, like discussing murder was equivalent to discussing dinner plans. "But if he insists on pursuing you despite multiple warnings, then yes, I'll handle it permanently." I should have protested, should have argued for mercy, for giving Marcus another chance, for solving this without more violence. But 8 months of bruises had burned through my capacity for forgiveness. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay." We drove for another 20 minutes before turning into an underground parking garage beneath a high-rise building in the Gold Coast. Private elevator, keycard access, security that made the townhouse look amateur by comparison. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse that occupied the entire top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. Furniture that screamed money and taste. Art on the walls that probably cost more than I'd make in a lifetime. "Guest room is down that hall," Dante said, gesturing. "Bathrooms attached. Everything you need should already be there. But if something's missing, tell me and I'll have it delivered." "How long will I be here?" "Until Marcus is no longer a threat. Could be tonight if my people find him quickly. Could be a few days if he's smart enough to go into hiding." Dante moved to the windows, stared out at the city spreading below. "Either way, you're not leaving this penthouse without me or Luca as escort. Understood? I'm not a prisoner. No, you're not. But you're also not equipped to defend yourself against a man who's decided you need to be punished." He turned back to face me, his expression serious. "Sophia, I know this feels like losing freedom you just regained. But Marcus isn't thinking rationally. Men like him become most dangerous when they lose control of what they consider their property. I need you safe while we handle this. I wanted to argue. Wanted to insist I could take care of myself, that I didn't need a mafia boss dictating my movements. But the truth was, Marcus terrified me in ways Dante never would. Marcus's violence was personal, intimate, designed to break rather than protect. Okay, I said again. I'll stay. Relief flickered across Dante's features. There and gone. Thank you for trusting me. I know I'm asking a lot. You've given me a lot. A safe place to sleep, food, protection. The least I can do is trust your judgment about my safety. He crossed the space between us, his hand coming up to cut my jaw where Marcus's fingers had left bruises yesterday. His touch was feather-light, careful not to cause pain. These should never have happened to you, he said quietly. You deserve better than someone who saw you as property to damage. I stayed with him. That was my choice. Staying with an abuser is never just a choice. It's survival calculation. It's financial pressure. It's systematic erosion of self-worth until leaving seems more dangerous than staying. His thumb traced the edge of one bruise with unexpected tenderness. You're not responsible for what Marcus did. He is. Something shifted in the air between us, charged with an awareness that hadn't been there before. Or maybe I had been there all along and I was only now brave enough to acknowledge it. Dante saw it too. His eyes darkened, his hand stilling against my skin. For a heartbeat, I thought he might kiss me. Wanted him to with an intensity that should have felt wrong given that I'd technically been with Marcus 24 hours ago. But Marcus had never made me feel this. This safety wrapped in danger, this gentleness from someone capable of extreme violence, this sense that I mattered beyond my usefulness. The moment stretched. Then Dante stepped back, breaking contact. You should rest. It's been an exhausting few days. His voice was slightly rougher than normal, betraying the effort it took to maintain distance. I have calls to make, people to coordinate, but I'll be in my office if you need anything. He left, and I stood alone in a penthouse overlooking Chicago. My life fundamentally transformed in the span of 48 hours by a man who looked at my bruises and decided they were his. Problem to solve. I didn't rest. Couldn't make my mind quiet enough for sleep. Instead, I explored the penthouse like cataloging safety measures. Emergency exits, secure windows, the panic button Dante pointed out by the front door. Learned the layout until I could navigate in darkness. The guest room was larger than the entire studio I'd shared with Marcus. King bed with linens that probably cost a month's rent. Attached bathroom with a soaking tub and shower that had more settings than I could figure out. A walk-in closet currently empty except for a robe hanging on one hook. I showered again, third time today, letting hot water work out the tension in my shoulders. When I emerged, I found clothes laid out on the bed. Yoga pants and a soft sweater, both new with tags still attached. My size exactly. The attention to detail should have felt creepy. Instead, it felt like being seen. Like someone had paid attention to who I was and what I needed. I dressed in the new clothes, left my old ones folded on the bathroom counter, and went exploring. Dante's office door stood partially open. I could hear his voice, low and controlled, speaking Italian to someone. I understood enough from 2 years at Romano's to catch words like hospital, Crawford, and eliminate the problem. Planning Marcus's fate while I stood outside his office wearing clothes he'd provided, I should have felt more conflicted about that. The conversation ended. Dante appeared in the doorway, unsurprised to find me there like he'd known I was listening. Any news? I asked. Marcus checked himself out of the hospital against medical advice 3 hours ago. My people tracked him to a motel in Cicero, but he'd already left by the time they arrived. Dante leaned against the doorframe. He's using cash, avoiding cameras, acting like someone who knows he's being hunted. So he's smart enough to hide but stupid enough to call and threaten me? Desperation. Makes people reckless. He's lost control of you, lost his punching bag, and his pride won't let him accept that. Dante's expression was grim. Men like Marcus would rather die than admit defeat. It's why they're dangerous even after you think they've been neutralized. How long until you find him? Hours, maybe days. Chicago's big, but my reach is bigger. He'll surface eventually, and when he does, we'll be ready. I nodded, processing. And then what? What happens after Marcus isn't a threat anymore? What do you want to happen? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? I mean exactly what I said. Dante pushed off the doorframe, moved closer until we stood a careful arm's length apart. After this is resolved, after you're safe, what do you want? Go back to Romano's? Find a different job? Go back to school? All of those are possible. All of those I can help facilitate. Why? Why would you keep helping me after the immediate danger is over? Because you matter. Simple. Absolute. Because the world has enough people who suffer needlessly, and I'm in a position to reduce that suffering in small, targeted ways. This is how I choose to use the power I've accumulated. I stared at him, at this man who commanded violence with a word but looked at me like I was worth protecting just because. I don't know what I want. I've spent so long focused on surviving that I forgot how to think about actually living. Then take time to figure it out. The townhouse is yours for as long as you need it. Job at Romano's is waiting if you want it, or I can help you find something different. No pressure, no timeline. Just choices that are actually yours to make. And what do you get out of this arrangement? His hand came up, tucked a strand of damp hair behind my ear with that same careful tenderness. I get to go to sleep knowing that somewhere in this city, a woman who didn't deserve what happened to her is safe and building a future on her own terms. That's enough. Is it really that simple? No. A slight smile curved his lips, the first genuine one I'd seen from him. Nothing's ever that simple. But the core truth remains. You needed help. I could provide it. So I did. Everything else is just details. We stood like that for a long moment. The space between us charged with something I didn't know how to name. Attraction, maybe. Or just the intensity of two people who'd crash-landed into each other's lives and were still figuring out what that meant. Dante's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, checked the screen, and his expression hardened. What is it? Marcus just tried to access your personnel file at Romano's. Marco caught him and called me immediately. Dante was already moving toward the elevator. He's desperate and escalating. This ends tonight. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. You're staying here where Dante. I grabbed his arm. If you're going to confront Marcus, I need to be there. I need to see him understand that I'm done, that he doesn't own me anymore. He searched my face, clearly weighing safety against my need for closure. Finally, he nodded once. Luca drives. You stay in the car unless I specifically say otherwise. And if anything goes wrong, if bullets start flying or situations deteriorate, you do exactly what Luca tells you without question. Agreed? Agreed. We took the private elevator down to the garage where Luca waited with the SUV running. 2 additional vehicles full of Dante's security team fell into formation behind us as we pulled out into Chicago night. The drive to Romano's took 20 minutes, long enough for my pulse to go from racing to a steady hammer, long enough to question whether I was making a terrible mistake by confronting Marcus directly. But I needed this, needed to look him in the eye and show him that I'd chosen safety over his definition of love, that his control had ended the moment Dante decided I deserved better. Romano's back parking lot was empty, except for Marco's sedan and an unfamiliar pickup truck with rusted panels and a dented bumper Marcus's truck, I realized with a jolt. He'd driven here directly, probably thinking I'd show up for a shift, that he could corner me in the employee bathroom or service alley like he'd done before when he wanted to remind me who I belonged to. Dante's hand found mine in the darkness of the SUV. Last chance to stay in the car while I handle this. I need to be there. He nodded, squeezed my hand once, then released it. Luca, stay with her. If Marcus so much as looks at her wrong, you have my permission to break whatever bones seem appropriate. Understood, sir. We exited the vehicle. Dante's security team spread out with professional efficiency, covering exits and angles with the precision of people who'd done this 1,000 times. Marco appeared in the restaurant's back door, his face pale but determined. He's inside, Mr. Caruso, hiding in the kitchen. Said he'd leave quietly. If Sophia came out to talk to him, I told him she wasn't here, that she didn't work here anymore, but he won't listen. Good. Keep him contained. Dante looked at me. Ready? I nodded, not trusting my voice. We entered through the back door, Luca's hand on my elbow, Dante leading with the confidence of someone who'd walked into dangerous situations and emerged victorious. The restaurant was closed, dining room dark except for emergency lighting that cast everything in shades of amber. The kitchen lights were on, and there, standing by the industrial sink with a knife from the prep station, was Marcus. He looked terrible, face swollen and bruised from whatever Dante's people had done to him yesterday, one arm in a sling from the dislocated shoulder, moving with the careful stiffness of someone whose ribs screamed with every breath. But his eyes, when they landed on me, were pure rage. There you are, he said, voice thick with pain and fury. Finally, I've been waiting for you, Sophia. waiting to remind you what happens when you embarrass me. Dante stepped between us, his body a wall of controlled violence. Put down the knife, Marcus. This doesn't end the way you think it does. Get out of my way. This is between me and my girlfriend. She's not your girlfriend anymore. She's under my protection, which means you threatening her with a kitchen knife is the last mistake you're ever going to make. Marcus's laugh was ugly, unhinged. You think I care? You think I care what some rich gangster does to me? She's mine. I spent 2 years breaking her in, teaching her how to behave, and she doesn't get to just walk away because some asshole in an expensive suit decided to play hero. I walked away, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Not because Dante told me to, but because I finally realized that your version of love was just control wrapped in violence. I'm done, Marcus. I'm done hiding bruises and making excuses and being your punching bag. You don't get to. Be done. He moved toward us, knife raised, completely ignoring Dante's presence. You don't get to decide when this relationship ends. I decide. Dante moved. It happened so fast I almost missed it. 1 second Marcus was advancing with the knife. The next he was on the ground, arm twisted at an unnatural angle, the knife skittering across the tile. Dante's knee pressed into Marcus's back, his hand controlling Marcus's neck with precise pressure. You have 2 choices, Dante said, voice cold enough to freeze. Choice 1. You leave Chicago tonight. You get in your truck, you drive, and you never come back. You never call Sophia, never contact her, never think about her again. You disappear so completely that even I forget you existed. And choice 2? Marcus gasped, struggling uselessly against Dante's hold. There is no choice 2, because if you don't take choice 1, if you ever come near her again, if you so much as Google her name, I will kill you. Not quickly, not mercifully, slowly, painfully, in ways that will make yesterday's lesson look like a gentle reminder. Dante increased the pressure on Marcus's neck slightly. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Yes, Marcus wheezed. Yes, I understand. Good. Dante released him, stepped back. You have 10 seconds to get up and walk out of here. Use them wisely. Marcus scrambled to his feet, cradling his re-injured arm, eyes wild with pain and humiliation. He looked at me one last time, and I saw it in his face the moment he understood he'd lost completely, that no amount of violence or threats would give him back the control he'd taken for granted. You'll regret this, he said, backing toward the exit. You'll come crawling back when you realize no one else will want you. You're damaged goods, Sophia. She's under my protection, Dante interrupted, his voice quiet but absolute, which makes her the safest person in Chicago. Now get out before I change my mind about letting you. Walk away. Marcus fled, literally ran out the back door to his truck, and 30 seconds later, we heard the engine roar to life and tires squeal as he peeled out of the parking lot. Silence settled over the kitchen. Marco appeared from wherever he'd been hiding, took in the scene, and nodded once at Dante. Thank you, Mr. Caruso, for handling that without, he gestured vaguely, without it getting messier. Thank Marco for calling me immediately. If he'd confronted Marcus alone, we'd be dealing with a very different situation. Dante's attention shifted to me. Are you all right? I nodded, then shook my head, then nodded again, completely unable to articulate the storm of emotions flooding through me. Relief, rage, grief, for the 2 years I'd wasted on Marcus, vindication at finally standing up to him even if it had required Dante's intervention. Take her home, Marco said quietly. I'll handle cleanup here. Make sure nothing points back to you if Marcus decides to involve police. In the SUV driving back to Dante's penthouse, I finally let myself process what had just happened. Marcus was gone. Actually, truly gone. Not just physically absent, but beaten, humiliated, and too terrified of Dante to ever come back. I was free. The realization hit like a physical force, and suddenly I was crying huge, gulping sobs that made Luca glance nervously in the rearview mirror. Dante pulled me against his chest, his arms coming around me with that same careful gentleness, and just let me break apart. You're safe now, he murmured into my hair. He's gone. He won't hurt you again. You're safe. And for the first time in 8 months, I believed it. Back at the penthouse, Dante guided me to the couch, brought me water and tissues, and sat beside me while I cried myself empty. When the tears finally stopped, I felt hollowed out but lighter somehow, like I'd been carrying Marcus's violence in my bones, and it had finally been exorcised. Thank you, I whispered. For everything. For seeing my bruises and caring. For giving me a safe place to land. For confronting Marcus when I couldn't do it alone. You could have done it alone eventually, Dante said. But you shouldn't have had to. No one should have to fight that fight without support. Why did you really do all this? The townhouse, the protection, the confrontation tonight. There has to be more to it than just your mother's story. He was quiet for a long moment, staring out at Lake Michigan glittering with reflected lights. When he finally spoke, his voice carried weight I hadn't heard before. My mother died believing she wasn't worth saving. Died thinking that my father's violence was somehow her fault, that she'd provoked it, deserved it. I couldn't save her, was too young, too powerless until it was too late. He turned to look at me. Dark eyes, intense. But I could save you, could show you that you're worth protecting just because you exist, not because you've earned it or proven yourself worthy. That's what my mother needed to hear and never did. I'm not your mother. No, you're not. You're Sophia, and you deserve to build a life where you're not afraid, where you make choices based on what you want, rather than what will prevent violence. His hand found mine, laced our fingers together. That's all I'm offering. A chance to figure out who you are without someone actively trying to break you. I looked at our joined hands, at the way his thumb traced circles over my knuckles, at this man who'd walked into my life 2 days ago and decided I was worth saving. What happens now? I asked. After tonight? Now you rest. Tomorrow you decide what comes next. Job, school, moving to a different city entirely, all options are on the table. He squeezed my hand gently. And if you want, we figure out what this is between us. This thing that started with bruises and protection but feels like it might be something more. You feel it too? The words escaped before I could stop them. Since the moment you looked at me with those green eyes and lied about walking into a door. A slight smile. Yes, I feel it. But you've just escaped one controlling relationship. I won't rush you into something new before you've had time to remember who you are on your own. What if I don't want to wait? What if I already know this is different? Then we take it slowly. We build trust through choice rather than necessity, and we see where it goes without pressure or expectations. He brought my hand to his lips, kissed my knuckles with unexpected tenderness. I'm not going anywhere, Sophia. Take the time you need. That night, I slept in Dante's guest room with the door unlocked for the first time in 8 months. Slept deeply and dreamlessly, knowing that if Marcus tried to come back, if any threat materialized, there were people between me and danger who decided my safety mattered. And somewhere in the city, Marcus was Brace, driving away, leaving behind the woman he'd tried to break but who'd survived him anyway. I'd survived. That was enough for tonight. Tomorrow, I'd figure out what came next. Tomorrow I'd start building a life that was actually mine. But tonight, wrapped in sheets softer than clouds in a penthouse overlooking the city, I let myself feel safe for the first time. In so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like. And it felt like coming home. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.